What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is Mock Draft Monday, so you know what time it is. It is a mock draft time. This is going to be 2 rounds split up into 2 days. Of course, there are potential ramifications of Monday Night Football. If they are that drastic, we'll just redo round one because, more mock drafts are never a bad thing. I just want to get out some good content to you guys early on. A lot of people like to do mock draft Mondays anyway, so I like to jump it onto that whole hype train. It gives me time during the week, some momentum to be able to look at the rest of the stuff, including stock reports, which I did a draft stock report very recently. You guys should check it out. Update all the graphics for it. And it's over 3 weeks. There's a lot of key players in there, especially the ones who are in my top 35, who have kind of not been mentioned by anybody else. So definitely check it out. It's a little bit more in depth than that. But without further ado, let's kick right into the video. With the number 1 overall pick, Houston Texans are sitting here. And once again, as usual, as every single person on earth should do, we're going to go Bryce Young. Maybe not every single person, because there is some validity to going other positions. Jalen Carter, for example, I would trade back if I'm ever even going to consider that. I would just trade back to pick number 2 if you're really thinking of not going to QB. But I digress. Bryce Young, obviously, is the dude who I have 99.9% of the time there. He's number 6 on my board, mainly due to the fact that he's smaller. That's it. Smaller, doesn't have a big arm, but his mental processing is super elite. I feel like he's able to create plays on his own. He doesn't really need to be schemed into success, and he's able to lift players around him. He's a good leader. He's not somebody who's causing a lot of problems. We've also seen him in situations where he's struggled and he's shined in 2-minute drills. So I really do like what Alabama brings to the table when they have Bryce Young at the quarterback position, because we actually get to see a little bit more of an NFL style of gameplay and a little bit more of an NFL scenario. Pick number 2. So I think we all know where we're going with this one. I'm happy I don't have to debate between Will Levis and CJ Stroud for you, just because, or Will Levis and another player, because one, I'm never down to draft Will Levis, especially that high. And honestly, there's no reason. Hi, McAfee. Pat McAfee's trying to make an entrance on the show. Hopefully we don't get sued for that. But I'm just joking. Will Levis, if we're talking about him as a top 3 prospect, we better start at least considering AR-15 to be a top 5. There's just no, he's younger, has the same size, speed, strength, and inconsistencies. So I just got to give a shout out there to AR-15 because it's Will Levis love. A little bit out of the ballpark, but if you are sitting here, it is very realistic to go CJ. It pretty much is a 1-2, and then the rest kind of taper off. And I do think CJ is a significant margin down from Bryce Young. That's just me, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm willing to admit I'm wrong if I am. However, in this situation, I think CJ Stroud definitely should be the 2nd overall pick. I think it's hyper realistic. You guys are looking for a QB, and since Hendon Hooker tore his ACL, and I hope him the fastest recovery because that looked absolutely awful. Seeing a man who's 25 years old writhe on the ground in that much pain, you just know damn for sure that just kills you inside. So just the options later on just get significantly worse. And I'm starting to debate bringing back AR-15 into this equation because of the fact that, 1, he's performing better, but number 2, just the talent continues to drop in this class. It really does. Again, Will Levis performed very valiantly versus Georgia. That's awesome, but you can't discount the games like Vanderbilt where he sucked. You can weigh them equally, and in that scenario, you can cancel out the Tennessee game or the Vanderbilt game with the Georgia game. Cool, that's great, but there's still the other one, and you can't really cancel it out with the Ole Miss because he still lost the game. So it's very tough. It's very tough to say Will Levis is anywhere near a top 10 player in the class. Obviously, I have him down there into the 60s on my board, but he'll probably make a little bit of a rise up based on his play versus Georgia. But the Bears, if you are sitting here, it's down to Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. And for me, I'm looking at what I can get in the next round. And sure, you don't have your own pick, so kind of jokes on the Bears. I kind of knew that was going to happen. So as a Steelers fan, I was raised a Chicago and Pittsburgh fan for all sports. So it's kind of cool to see both of them work together on this. But I'm happy that the Steelers, since I think they have a brighter future ahead, have those top 40 picks. But Sitting here, number 3, we're going to go Jalen Carter. I think that even with that Ravens pick, you're still going to get a high enough value edge rusher. Jalen Carter is exactly what you would need to just plant right there. You can also get a tackle later on. I'm not reaching at number 3 for a tackle, and I know that Jalen Carter is so unique that he's worth taking at that spot, and the value of that pick is just ridiculous. So I like looking at it, even pick number 4 to pick number 3. That gap is 400 points on the pick value scale that all NFL teams essentially use. Of course, there's ranges of flexibility, but as a baseline, that is roughly a second round pick. That's expensive. That's expensive just to move up one spot. And then the Bears, yeah, you could have been better off with the tackle and then given Jalen Carter to the Raiders, but you're kind of in a position where you're kind of chilling, not actually, like, you can get the player you want. I don't know what that second round pick is exactly going to do for you, but I think it's a great choice. So pick number 4, the Raiders are sitting here. I personally would try to consider moving out. I would. I do have Myles Murphy here. As you guys can see, it's my number 1 player on my board. I'm a huge fan of him, but you also have Will Anderson here. And again, there's a lot of teams that could certainly use somebody of that caliber. And I'm thinking that all 3 of these teams should be at least trying to make a move up. I think the Eagles should be as well. But if you're thinking about it, the first pick's 3,000 points. That's just a general rule. Then it's 2,600, 2,200. And then I think this one is either 1,800 or 2,000. It might be 2,000. So then it goes by 200, 200, 200, 200. And then I think that's the way it goes up until pick 10. So this right here, 10 to 4, because I was thinking, okay, maybe we can make a move with the Eagles. Doesn't seem to be the brightest move in the world. So I want to move back with a team that's probably not going to look to replace their QB. And I like the idea of the Texans making a move up here. But of course, the Texans could try to replace more than one position. However, I don't know how many actual legitimate holes that you'll be able to fill in this draft you have. So if I am looking at this, I see, like, I'm happy to see all this because I would love to be able to at least theorize on a trade for it. Let's look at the Houston Texans. Are they in here? You have to be kidding me. Look at all these teams, and they did not even pull the Houston Texans in here. So obviously it's the Cleveland Browns pick. But I think that when you have pick 64 in your arsenal as well, I think it's totally worth packaging. You have 2 first-round picks next year. You can package a 2-2, and that is roughly worth. So I know that pick 64, I think it's worth around 200 to 250 points. And that round 2, given the fact you had the number 1 overall pick, should be worth close to 400, which is about the approximate value. I do see that there's no 200s pick here, so I'm going to toss that in as well. You still keep that 32 overall pick, but the Raiders are playing the long game right now, and you're still going to be able to get a QB. So I think this is a win-win for both sides. I do think the Texans moving up into this position should be very happy to nab Will Anderson Jr., somebody who can definitely just absolutely radicalize that team. Of course, you're getting that instant chemistry with your quarterback and now your commander of the defense. Lovie Smith gets a QB as well as a star defender. Your cornerback situation, I love your corner one. Obviously, Derek Stingley's been doing great. He has some slip-ups. You know, he's a guy who's built as a man corner, but he still has some great feel in zone. He still is super locked down. So the future's bright with Derek Stingley. Now you have Will Anderson as well. Like, these, you're getting players who have been hinted as top 2 players, like, long before they ever came out. So you're getting those guys with great pedigree and great talent. Pick number 5 for Seattle, who would have loved Will Anderson. So if you're sitting here, you got to look at Myles Murphy. You got to say, okay, I know our edge group is, you know, not the worst in the world. You have some talent there, right? But honestly, for one, this team doesn't have many issues. There's a reason why this is Denver's pick and not theirs. So I'd be perfectly happy going Myles Murphy here. I traded up for him in my last mock draft. I still think that's an amazing move. I think the tackles are secure. We'll just do this for you guys to give you a quick little visual. So quarterback, I'm not going after one. I really want to give Gino another shot. I would just say, hey, we'll give you, well, franchise tag's a little bit rough. So it's like, we'll give you a 1-year, $20 million deal. Prove it again, then you get another deal. So wide receiver, not even worth it. Tight end, new. Running back, new. And then offensive line, I think tackles should be secured for the next 4 years at least. guard is not worth it at top 5. So when you look at the defense, corner, you guys like to draft later around corners. It's not your way to draft them early. And I trust you guys to be able to draft later. So to me, having that nice stability of trust, that nice foundation of being able to at least find good value in later round corners, to me makes me feel very comfortable not taking one at this spot. 3 safety sets are a big thing. No way in hell I'm taking them in the top 5. And then you're down to these groups, which linebacker, again, not in the top 5. So defensive interior, a lot of people love Brian Bresee. I don't. I have a lot of guys who are similar, if not better, in terms of comparison to him, and we're going to easily be able to get him in round 2. So that leaves me solely with edge, and then that leaves me solely with Myles Murphy, my number 1 player in the draft. I'm going to scroll down just a slight bit so y'all can see a little bit more. Obviously, you see Isaiah McGuire up there at pick number 4, right under my head. So right there, I guess. But, Joey Porter's the only one who hasn't been taken that is right there. So pick number 6, this very well might be Joey Porter. But looking at the options available, I think there's enough big body receivers. I'm not that crazy about going Quentin Johnston at this point. I like the defensive interior route next round, not for this one, because again, there are dudes who are going to be there. But, I'm not going QB. I'm not. Again, this is a free pick. You could send one on a QB, but I'm not even confident in CJ Stroud panning out as a franchise QB. Why would I send a top 6 pick to another player who I don't think is going to pan out? It just wouldn't be fair to you guys nor me. And I know that there's a level of realism that we have to add in here, but we tried to do that last year, and the first quarterback went at pick 20, then the next one went like pick 80. So we do have to understand that realism is projected. It's still not fully realistic. Regardless, I think the best route to go here would be to go after a corner. Again, Isaiah McGuire, I love him to death, but I'm not going to force him in the top 6. I'm just not. I'm not taking edge 3 in the top 6 either. Like, I would be perfectly fine getting Felix Anudike-Uzomah with a trade back or with our second pick, which, cheers to you guys, pick number 13. So with this one, I am going to be going after a corner. I do think pairing up Jeff Okudah, who I think went down with an injury, so hopefully he is going to be perfectly fine. But I'm gonna lock him up. Joey Porter, Jeff Okudah, long run, gonna be a nasty duo at corner. I love that nice size, length, speed, and physicality that both of those would bring. Again, you're going up against Justin Jefferson 2 times a year. Christian Watson, I don't know if we could even consider him into that level of consideration, but still, you're facing good threats multiple times a year. You need somebody who can get their hands on him, slow him down, and be able to neutralize him. Joey Porter is going to be that guy for you. Pick number 7. This is going to be a QB. I don't trade back twice. And again, you have to factor realism in here. I don't know why AR-15 is not in this consideration, but they're going to get rid of Derek Carr. I know they just straight up won a game. And can you keep him? Yeah, but this is a way of cutting him, and he's only $5 million cap hit. I really want to say you guys should keep him because then you get to have a stud player. You could have been there at pick number 5 and been okay, or traded it up to pick number. Watch it, you guys were at pick number 4. You could have gotten somebody like Myles Murphy, right? It would have been great, but I just can't. I have to understand. You have to think that Will Levis is going to get a ton of hype, especially after that Georgia game. I'm not as high on him, but we have to factor that in. We have to. And the Raiders are going to be desperate. You lost out on the top 2 quarterbacks. You gained a future second round and this year, essentially late second round pick. So we're going to do it. I'm sorry. I am. Do I think that Will Levis is all that? No. I think he has a big arm. I think he's going to be a great leader. He played through a turf toe, so at least you see that mentality. But it's just tough saying Will Levis is going to be the success in the NFL. But he's a good player. He is a good player. He just has some major flaws, and if you do want to play the long game, this is probably a good way to start doing it. Pick number 8, the Steelers. I think Peter Skoronski is probably going to be my move here. You could go after defensive line. I do think that getting extra defensive help, never a bad thing. Corner, do think corner should be at least in the mix. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea. I know the Steelers don't usually take corners in the first. Haven't really taken linemen either, to be fair. But I think it should be down to corner as well as offensive tackle. But I do think offensive tackle might be available at the next spot. I do. I think that I'd be pretty confident that an offensive lineman could be there. So looking at the available options, Christian Gonzalez is a monster. I love Jalen Jones. So personally, I don't see any other team taking Jalen Jones right now. Oh, it's so tough. But Peter Skoronski is such a stealer. I mean, I would love to trade back, but I'm also seeing a couple teams where I'd feel very happy ending up with Jalen Jones as my corner. So we're going to go Peter Skoronski here. Um, Again, I don't think the Steelers take a corner round one. I want them to, but it looks like their best ability is to get them through free agency. That's just usually what we do via trade or free agency. So I don't think the first round pick is going to be there. But we have done a good job in the past of drafting high overall linemen. I think we're going to continue doing the same with Peter Skoronski. 32-inch arms are a legit concern, but he is shorter. I'm not going to go through the damn physics of it for you guys or the calculus, or the geometry for that matter. But essentially, I think that shorter height definitely gives him a little bit more of a range boost in terms of contact. So I feel like you could consider it like 32.5-inch arms. Still small, but I do think he can make do with it. Or worst case scenario, goes to guard, which the Steelers still need anyway. Pick number 9. I am still on board with going after a corner for this team. I think the wide receiver class is a bit overrated, and I personally would totally want to go after a position that's a little bit more top stacked than deep. And I like Quentin Johnston to this team, I do. But I've been doing this a lot, and I'm such a huge fan of it. Christian Gonzalez, who I have there at number 10 on my big board, as again, you guys can see right under me, but of course, I can see right there. Christian Gonzalez is a monster. I love him. And I think that he's such a good fit. He's a great pairing for Tyson Campbell. Both are of a very similar style, so I think both could end up being really good running mates. And then, of course, you're in a division where you're not fully solidified everywhere. You look at the quarterbacks, obviously Indy, and then you just have Bryce Young enter, and then Malik Willis is probably going to be eventually taking over. So having a ball hawk definitely seems like a very good option, especially since he's very good at press as well. But pick number 10, the Eagles. I think this is a good spot to trade back. I'm looking at the number 1 wide receivers still being on the board here. Number 1 wide receivers are extremely valuable as well. I'm seeing a team like the Chargers here who could be salivating for a player like Quentin Johnston, like Jordan Addison. Of course, they don't probably need to move up that much to be able to acquire one of those guys because of the fact that, Green Bay's going to be taking one. Technically, Okay, so I think I might move up with the Lions because I don't think the Lions want Green Bay to have Quentin Johnston. I don't. And I don't think Green Bay gets as much value with Jordan Addison. This is an interesting idea. I think this is exactly what we're going to do. And of course, Howie is going to Howie. Like, that's what we do. Why do they never offer the teams that actually want to move up to this spot? But for that 3-pick difference, it is, if I'm not mistaken, around 200 to 300 points, which is roughly a second-round pick. What's great? You have a second round pick. And I'm going to try to get something back for you guys. We'll look at pick 95 in return, and then let's see. I don't see a pick 160 in there, so we'll toss that in as well. But roughly that's a trade. It's not going to affect this mock anyway, so it's not fully based on I want to make sure you guys actually maintain the quantity of picks, especially based off of quality. I don't think late round picks are going to help you very much. But if I need to adjust the trade value, obviously I will. But that's not going to affect this mock draft. Regardless, I love moving up here, jumping your in-division rivals to go after Quentin Johnston here. Of course, the Eagles, Howie's going to Howie. He's going to do what he wants to do, and you acquire an extra pick for it. Pick number 11, Green Bay Packers. It just got fleeced by your own in-division rivals. So I still think wide receivers should be a route you at least consider. Jordan Addison, probably the guy who I'd want to go after. But I could wait to the next round and end up with someone maybe like Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, like somebody who can actually be a dynamic weapon, similar in value to Jordan Addison at this point. So I want to look at offensive line. And I think definitely looking for the future there. I mean, we continue to talk week after week about the offensive line not being good enough. I think that should be your way to go. I really do. And if you don't get to have an option at getting a true X receiver, it's probably best to try to get the maximum value elsewhere. So going Paris Johnson, he can play guard, he can play tackle. Obviously, you guys value that because you have Elton Jenkins on your roster, but he was one of the best players. David Bakhtiari's never healthy. Best players in high school. David Bakhtiari's never healthy. So I think it's just fair to go Paris Johnson here. You have that versatility, and with the injuries that continue to rack up, he's a great guy to fit in those roles. And he's been playing up north, so he's used to those crazy climates. And I'm going to scroll down on my big board so y'all can see just a little bit more of it. We'll try to do where you guys can see some new players. Pick number 12. So the Cardinals, I actually saw this pick not too long ago, and I think it's actually really fun to ponder. Tyree Wilson deserves to be a top 10, top 15 pick. I love him. Absolutely love him. Again, you guys see where he is on my board at number 14. I'm a huge fan of what he's done. 50 pressures on the year. He's gotten better game after game after game. Not statistically, but you see it. You see the polish start to come, and he's looking a lot more fluid. I love that. Big fan. So pick number 12, it's down to Tyree Wilson and probably a corner. And the thing is, Kelee Ringo, if I'm not mistaken, played high school here. He's a hometown kid. He's a baller as well. I'm going to go Kelee Ringo for this squad. Of course, I did nab him from my Eagles. Not my Eagles. Oh, there we go. Freudian slip from my buddy's Eagles. Of course, I was just talking to our former co-host and Eagles fan, Keon, not too long ago. But actually, right before I started this video. But I still think the Eagles should look at a corner here. I think Jalen Jones is an absolute star. Again, he's my number 7 player on my board. I would pull up the stats for you guys right now. I don't know if I can legally do that because of the fact that, it requires PFF premium. I kind of do that anyway. But in the future, we might do that. He's allowed 70 yards all season long, like 72. And he allowed 38 his first week, which means he's allowed 34 since then. And he started every single game pretty much. He's been an absolute lockdown. He's great in zone. It's going to cost a boatload to keep Bradbury. I almost said Garrett Bradbury again. I almost said James Bradbury. I have a tendency to mess up names. But Jalen Jones, easily the best corner on the board, in my opinion, especially for this scheme. He's great versus the run, too. He has missed tackle rates, but he's willing to take on a big hit, and he actually can handle it. And even though you don't always make the play, he's at least there trying to make a play. So you can get the try to make a little bit closer, and then you get to see him totally flourish as a player. Obviously, he's number 20 on PFF's big board too, which was a huge surprise to me. I thought I was a big Jalen Jones guy. I think he's an absolute stud. I certainly believe he's worth a top 13 pick. And then the Eagles, again, acquiring another pick in the process. Pick number 14. So I'm on train, go AR-15 or go offensive tackle, and I think it's just more fair to go OT here. We could go AR. We could. It would be very interesting. I think Derek Carr is going to land here. I do. This is a veteran quarterback team, and that's exactly what I'm going to project. So, sorry, I keep wanting to say Allen Robinson because he used to be AR-15. Now he was like AR-12. Regardless, I'm sorry, Anthony Richardson. I'm going to be going offensive tackle here. And I'm a big fan of Graham Barton. Obviously not this spot in the draft. But if I'm saying this spot, I want Anton Harrison because he can fill in for injuries. Again, he did slip up more recently than Broderick Jones has. There's a player who I'm dying to take who kind of made Broderick Jones look a little silly. But Anton Harrison kind of looked silly against Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So can we cancel it out? I think we can. Actually, we're going to go Broderick Jones. We're going to cancel it out because the more I watch Isaiah McGuire, the more I realize that he's just on another level. But again, we have to blend realism in here. Pick number 15. I think corner 2 should be the route, but it's so hard to say no to Tyree Wilson. So I'm going to see who's here. Cam Smith. Cam Smith would be such a good fit on this team, and you need a corner 2. You really do. I can't say no to Cam Smith, and I can't say no to Tyree. But I also know in round 2, I'm going to get someone who's similar, within 30 to 50 spots of Tyree Wilson. Probably not of Cam Smith. So we're going to go Cam. He deserves to be brought up on my board too because he's right now sitting in those 60s range. He should be probably in the top 32. Pick number 16 for the Chargers. This is going to be Jordan Addison. I'm not going to think much on it. You need a supreme weapon. That guy's going to absolutely change your game. So, big fan of that. Pick number 17. This is going to be Trent Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson. He is easily the most high upside linebacker in the class. Not named Jacoby Windman, but Jacoby is... his floor is a lot lower. But Trent has been doing a very phenomenal job week after week. He's proven that he has both athleticism as well as intellect, which he kind of lacked the latter last year. So I'd love to see that progression. He can probably continue to do so in the NFL, pairing up with Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb. That is going to be a nice linebacking core. And again, that's another spot for AR-15. I just don't think they pulled the trigger on it. I don't think so. I don't. Pick number 18, the Jets. So I think y'all know exactly where I'm going with this too. I mean, when in doubt, go offensive line. This team never is healthy at the tackle spot, and I'm not putting Elijah Vera Tucker there every single game. So I think Anton Harrison would be a great fit. He's definitely a consistent player. I just want to see him not let up pressures, and he's been doing that more recently. A little bit concerning, but you've seen the high-level play, and I think he could probably negate those negative factors in the league. Pick number 19. Again, this is going to be a standard plug and play player, Bijan. You need an identity on that team. I think the Broncos would love Bijan Robinson. I think they would absolutely love that. So that's also why I'm not allowing anybody to get Bijan except for Tampa Bay. But in the future, I might move up with them. That'd be kind of cool. Regardless, can you imagine Bijan and Javonte Williams? Oh, like, ridiculous. Pick number 20. I think we all know that this should be offensive line. And I don't really think there's much of debate here. There's just not much wrong with the team. Running back, again, I love Javonte, so I don't have much of an issue. I'm just saying Bijan because, it's like fuck it money, right? Edge rusher certainly should be at least a little bit in the consideration. I know that you do have some quality edge rushers there, but let's look at it. Honestly, isn't Tyree Wilson still on the board? Oh, fuck! I can't say no. He should not be here at pick 20. He is a freak, 6'6", 275, and he's just god tier. I don't even care who the hell else you have there. It's BPA. Incredible player. I am such a huge fan. Pick number 21. So, I just cannot believe that happened. So, if you are sitting at this spot, again, I love the idea of a safety. I love the idea of a linebacker. I love the idea of potentially moving back. And I want to look at who is here. You got guys like Brian Branch who are going to be elite DBs. And I'm also looking at this corner core, and it's looking a little thin at the moment. I am projecting Garrett Williams to return. Again, he's a top 10 player who just tore his ACL not too long ago. I'm seeing a pretty thin corner room. And I'm seeing a team that desperately probably wants a corner, and they're not too far back. That team's the Baltimore Ravens, because they're going to try to jump the Bills here. And I think that would be a phenomenal move for them. Why never ever are they here? I don't know why it always recommends the teams I do not ever want to trade up with. But still, you don't have a second round pick. That's why you really need to capitalize on this first round one. So when I'm looking at it, it's going to be tough to end up giving another pick this year. And I honestly think that Seattle is looking for next year picks anyway. So looking at the value of 21 to 25, that's also roughly about 200. I think a round 2 pick would probably suffice, but I'm going to give a round 3 pick and then a round 5. I think that's just the most fair. 78% chance being accepted, that actually means that, it's actually a pretty fair trade. So we're going to be doing that. Baltimore needs to be able to hit on this pick, and that's exactly what they're going to do with Brian Branch. He can play boundary corner, he can play slot, he can play safety. He's just one of those players where in the right system, he's going to be a top 5 DB in the league. His athleticism is off the charts. His high-end plays are off the charts. So if you get him to a situation that's a lot better at maximizing the top play rather than the bottom, then this guy's going to be special. So pick number 22, Patriots. Again, you guys are here. Power to you. You guys are going to get Olu Fashanu. I think an offensive tackle definitely is a very good option. You also are taking him from the Bengals, which I'm critical of going Olu for the Bengals. However, at this point, not exactly too critical because they are at 23, not at pick 18, which again, I understand. You're nitpicking there. But the Bengals, since I've kind of depleted the 2 positions I love to go after, I might go interior offensive line here. I don't think of tight end or a wide receiver. Michael Mayer would be fun. Michael Mayer, I'm trying to include him more in the first, just out of respect. I think Michael Mayer could be a good option for this team. I think they could. He is very mean as well. He has that AFC North vibe to him. I like going a tight end in the second, but honestly, let's live a little. Let's live a little. Let's go Michael Mayer here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit as well to show you guys a little bit more of my board. I like to give to you guys a little bit. But for the Buffalo Bills, I know safeties are coming up for a contract, and if you cannot get the number 1 safety prospect in the draft, go for the number 2. Technically, Antonio Johnson's number 1, but his ceiling is a little bit more capped physically. But Antonio Johnson's a stud. I mean, again, someone who I think would be a late first, early second as a boundary corner. I thoroughly believe in him. But again, really good player, fits immediately. I love seeing Antonio Johnson fall to this spot. Pick number 25. This is, again, traded back with Baltimore, is the Seattle Seahawks. I'm looking at Brian Bryce. I just might say, hey, let's pair him up. Again, like, look, we have a pick right here. I think we'd be perfectly fine. I don't have Brian Bryce as high as my friend Jerzon Newton here, but I think Brian Bryce having that instant chemistry with his buddy Myles Murphy, I think that's the way to go. I think that is. So let's go Brian Bryce. Let's keep them together. The Clemson defensive front of Clemson. I think that's the right way to go about this. Pick number 26. So again, this is another team where I'd wish offensive tackle were here, and it is. I think Javon Foster is a perfect, he is hand in glove for this team at this point. Looking at how he's developed over the year, my only issue is this. He has not continued to improve upon his game in one aspect. The one way he continues to lose, the inside spin move, every time. I've seen 3 games in a row where he gets beat by an inside spin move. It's like, come on, dude, you gotta, watch the tape, learn from your mistakes, do some extra reps in practice, prepare for an inside spin move. I don't get it. But I think maybe we can see that at the next level. Fingers are crossed. Pick number 27, the Cowboys. Again, this would be a dream spot for someone like Antonio Johnson, Brian Branch, but not the case. I don't really see anybody else really worth it at this point. I love going offensive line for this team or wide receiver. I think both are very applicable options. Linebackers should be in the equation as well. So I honestly love the idea of going an offensive lineman. I do. This team loves to run the ball. Your identity is Zeke and Tony Pollard, and then obviously Dak has been injured multiple times. Okay, a thumb is not really going to be indicative of the offensive line, but making sure your guys are healthy is key. Winning the trenches is always key as well. I love the idea of going after a solidified veteran, Andrew Voorhees. You're trying to ring chase right now, and you just came off a victory versus the Minnesota Vikings. I love that. So Andrew Voorhees is going to be my guy. He, of course, just won the battle for Los Angeles there, USC beating UCLA, and being able to protect Caleb Williams was a big part of that. And he's been doing it for multiple years in a row. You're trying to make sure you have everything in place. You have Tyler Smith, who's super young, super developmental. Have a veteran step in and be able to make sure that there's some continuity to that line. Pick number 28 for the, I almost said the Minnesota Vikings, but New York Football Giants. For one, I don't know what crack they're smoking here with Tanner McKee. This is going to be AR-15. You guys know this. You guys know this deep down. Dable is awesome as a coach. And Saquon is awesome as a running back. And he is your identity. But y'all know how much better you could be with someone who's better than Daniel Jones. You know deep down. Deep down you know. So I'm going to go with it. It's not Hendon Hooker. Out of respect for him because he tore his ACL and because he was having such an amazing season, we'll have him at least be the substitute to be featured. I do love Hendon Hooker. He's not going to be going in round 2 just because, again, he's going to be about 26 years old probably by the time he takes his first snap, based on how awful, how much pain he was in. I mean, at worst, he'll be 25, and his best ability is mobility. So losing that just really hurts. But, I mean, Anthony Richardson, if we're really talking about Will Levis as a top 15 prospect, we need to start talking about him too. Again, both of them, big arm, mobile, willing to take hits, and both of them have big playability. So here's the difference. One, Will Levis is playing, he has those flashes where Mike Renner talks about it as Favre-esque. And I understand that. But both these guys have issues in terms of processing. So you're both taking a risk on that. You've seen AR-15 throw 30-yard passes off like 6 feet off the ground. Like those Justin Herbert level throws where it's just like right to the face mask too. There's some place where it's certainly concerning. But if there's one person to get it right, it's Dable. So definitely love that. But people do comment this a lot. They say, "Oh, you white boys are always standing up for Will Levis," and I'm never one. I don't even look into anything like that. I think that's absolutely stupid. If anybody ever does, similar to, I mean, like college scouting. If you look at the teams and say like, "Oh, they're Ohio State quarterback," I'm not even gonna look at them. Like CJ, I think that's pretty lazy as well. I think if you want to be more specific and say the Ohio State offense doesn't translate, that's where you start having actual analysis. By looking at stereotypes, it's never going to work in your favor because simply that just means you're an arrogant dumbass. But there's a legitimate argument for people saying that there could be a racial component. And I'm not one to ever talk about that because I just personally don't believe I'm bringing in political issues to this type of stuff. But if you're talking about two players who are almost identical, except one of them is 3 years older and has a different background, I understand where the criticisms are coming from, and I'm not going to stand for that. I think Allen Robinson. I think Anthony Richardson deserves to be a first round pick. If we're going to say that Will Levis should be, there's no fucking way we shouldn't say Anthony Richardson. Jesus, there's no way we should say Anthony Richardson should not be. So I'm going to put my foot down. I'm putting him back into the first. I'm going to say he comes out this year because Hendon Hooker's gone. That means that there's another spot open for him to take a major rise. I got to stand my foot down on that one. I want to show some love to a player who desperately needs it because he's not getting enough of it. Pick number 29 for the Minnesota Vikings. I think corner should be a position to look at. I think wide receiver could be a position to look at. I do like this wide receiver idea. Jackson Smith and Jigba would be such a good replacement for Thielen. So that's exactly where we're going to go. Of course, could have done that for the Cowboys, but I want to change things up a little bit, just to be honest with you. Pick number 30, I would love to go offensive tackle. I've already gone after all of the first round ones, so, I mean, you still have needs on the edge rushing position. I think Andre Carter's great. I think Jared Verse is great. I like Felix Anudike-Uzomah in this situation, though, but I also love Isaiah McGuire. And I'm going to go Felix just because it's the more realistic pick, but I do want to just put my chest out there and say I love Isaiah McGuire. He's probably going to beat this pick that I have for the Eagles here. I do love him to death. And he is my number 4 player. I mean, like, look, let's scroll up and see. Right there. Number 4, Isaiah McGuire. I do love him. And I'm not doing this just for the Eagles. I'm doing this for realism. This is going to be Isaiah McGuire. 275, 6'4". I think he's almost as good as Myles Murphy. I just don't think enough people are watching him. In the games where he is not performing, he is still kicking ass and playing at a very high level, and that's what I love. I purposely watch the games where he performed poorly. So it's going to say Adita Miwa, because I'm not going to take Adita Miwa in this draft, but that is going to be Isaiah McGuire, my number 4 player in the class, someone who I think should be in consideration as a top 10 pick for sure. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out for round 2 coming soon. See ya. Peace.